We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation. May news just for you. It's January 25th here in Seoul. I'm Shin-Yoon, and you're watching News Generation. Joining me in the studio is Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
And Chiji.
Good morning.
Happy Thursday. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Energy drinks may be helpful in the short term, giving you enough energy to get you through the day, but they can take a toll on your sleep patterns. That's according to a new study on university students in Norway. The study found that those who drink energy drinks daily slept about half an hour less each night compared to those who didn't drink energy drinks at all or had them occasionally. Moving on, Netflix has made a multi-billion-dollar deal to become the only global broadcaster of World Wrestling Entertainment from next year. The streaming giant agreed to a 10-year deal worth over $5 billion, ensuring WWE programs like Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. Pay-per-views like WrestleMania will also be available on the platform. This deal is by far the biggest investment Netflix has made in live sports. In less than 2 months' time, South Korean singer Chung Ju-young, who was at the center of the Burning Sun scandal that shook Korea back in 2019, will be released from prison. Chung was initially handed a 5-year sentence for sexually assaulting an intoxicated woman and illegally recording sexual videos and taking photos and sending them to fellow celebrities in a group chat. Ahead of his release, other celebrities who've been involved in the scandal are steadily trying to get back into media. That includes K-pop boy band Big Bang Seungri and FT Island's Choi Jong-hoon. Now, the public has been quick to react. Many have raised their eyebrows and said how it's too soon to see these celebrities back on TV and just sweep what they've done under the carpet. Now, here in the studio, what do you guys think? Do you remember the Burning Sun scandal that really shook up South Korea back in the year 2019? And do you think it's right that we put the past in the past now that it's been a few years now, and now that most of the involved have actually finished their prison sentence?
Well, I do clearly remember the whole situation, and absolutely not for them returning to the entertainment scene. I can't even believe that it's already been 5 years. And initially, I thought 5 years sentence was too short for the crimes they committed,
Right.
and especially Chung Ju-young. And also, I think there are things that could be put in the past, but this case certainly isn't. And there are celebrities who commit crimes or make mistakes in the past and try to really reflect and have remorse on what had happened and try to come back, make a comeback and do what they've done in the past. But I don't think this should be acceptable.
Exactly. What about you, Walter?
Yeah, I mean, it was probably the biggest news of the year when that happened, right? So in my point of view, I think any celebrity who has conducted this sort of crime, which is very, very serious, should not be on television whatsoever after they do their sentence. So, but that's what happens here in Korea, sadly. A lot of celebrities, a big crime is drink driving. What they do is then take a 2-year hiatus and then come back 2 years later and still continuously make the big dollars, which I think is just completely unfair. But to the extent of this Burning Sun scandal, I think that people like Chung Ju-young shouldn't be there at all or on TV at all.
Even though they served their prison sentence, I
Yeah.
do think because it's all about reputation and also the amount of influence you are exerting as a public figure, which we mentioned a few days back, it does really shed light as to whether it's appropriate for them to be back on the screen. And while this issue develops, in the meantime, we're going to switch gears to our main discussion topic of the day now. We're living in times where living just off our salary doesn't seem to be enough. Rising food prices and high inflation almost makes investment seem like a necessity, especially among millennials and Gen Z. My AI voice secretary with more.
Back in April last year, a private academy institution in Korea surveyed 500 millennials and Gen Z. The survey asked what they were most interested in. 9 out of 10 said they were most interested in investment. Another area of interest was real estate. Respondents preferred increasing their wealth over getting a job, electronics, or learning a new language.
As our generation is interested in investment, there's many different ways we try to expand our assets. One popular method that has boomed recently is Bitcoins, especially since the U.S. securities regulator first approved U.S.-listed exchange-traded funds, or ETF, to track Bitcoin. So Walter, why don't you tell us a bit more about this measure and how this would affect our generation's investment patterns from now on?
Exactly. So like you said, the latest trend is Bitcoin ETF, as you mentioned, standing for Exchange Traded Fund. Now, what it basically is an easy and convenient investment where you can sell or buy assets on the stock market, for example, Tesla. From the end of 2023, the price of Bitcoin soared and the coin craze among MZers began to blow up once again. Now, in fact, 62% of virtual currency exchanges are on the MZ generation, and they are the ones who are investing in these coins.
I see. Now, Chi, would you like to add on about the latest Bitcoin craze and how this affected our investment patterns?
Sure. In South Korea, however, the Financial Services Commission has decided not to pursue the proposal of allowing domestic investors to really invest in Bitcoin ETFs listed overseas or launch any sort of domestic ETF. And this is partly because we've been influenced by an incident in the past where we delisted the cryptocurrency called Luna. And this, of course, made the decision, influenced the decision because we had to be more cautious with investing in these sort of cryptocurrencies. And I think many millennials, since they have experienced failure in investing in these cryptocurrencies, I think they will opt for traditional means of investment a lot more rather than something risky like cryptocurrencies.
Exactly, and we're still yet to see whether digital assets are really reliable and credible. That's exactly why the US's latest measures, like a lot of professionals are looking into this and they're saying, is it really not that risky of an investment pattern, especially since already earlier today we've seen the peak price of Bitcoin fall down from earlier this month to a fifth. So we're seeing a lot of volatility there. But in regards to that, I think it also has to do with how much our generation is gearing attention towards whether it be Bitcoins or any other ways of expanding our assets. And that just shows that our generation is really interested in that because, as we mentioned in the VCR, in times like this, it's really hard just to live off our salary. So could you explain how exactly are more young adults, especially here in Korea, trying to invest?
Yes, so yes, it is very hard to live from paycheck to paycheck. But if we take a look at the screen, I can tell you what most MZers are doing these days. Now, this is obviously the most used savings and investment methods by our generation and the MZ generation. Now, as you can see, with a large portion, installment savings comes in at number one. That's 37.5%. Then we are followed by stocks, virtual assets, and surprising and not surprising at the same time is Korea these days aren't really into their real estate and they haven't been investing in it as much. And this is obviously due to the fact that, you know, the pricing of houses these days and apartments is just almost out of reach for most MZers, I think.
Exactly. I don't think it's the matter of we're not being interested in it or not. I think it's the matter of whether we can afford it, but it is often a very popular investment method. And as you mentioned, these are some trends that our generation is following because we prioritize investment. Are there any other methods these days?
Well, 86% of the younger generation, they believe that they need knowledge in finance to be able to invest better. Although the younger generation, compared to the older generation, have less asset and less income, they do have a very economic mindset and they stay up to date with all the domestic and international trends, which means that they're better and quicker at adapting to new forms of investment. And these include things like investing in plants even, and music copyrights, funding, as well as selling their luxury goods.
So there's so many different types of investment methods out there because our generation seems to be prioritizing that. So I believe that there's going to be a lot of latest trends going on. And I'm curious as to you guys speaking on behalf of millennials and Gen Z out there. there. Have you ever tried out any unique investment methods?
Unfortunately, I haven't. I'm going to have to give you a quick and boring answer and just I do not invest in anything at the moment. However, as I get older and the more people around me I meet and talk to, they are investing into certain areas such as Bitcoin or whatever it may be. And I do understand that it might actually be very helpful for me to start investing, but I'm actually quite scared to invest myself.
Right.
And I think it's one thing that you have to follow these trends every day. What's happening in the stocks every day. My family around me invests. I think I'm the only one in my family who doesn't invest, so I'm left in the dark at the moment. But it is something that I am seriously considering these days.
Exactly. You mentioned a good point. I think there's still a lot of millennials, Gen Z, like yourself, who might not be directly investing, given the fact that they want to compile more information, but the interest is still there. It's very visible. What about you, Chi?
Well, I'm currently investing in just stocks, but many millennials and Gen Zers these days, unlike Walter, they're turning to some new means of investing. And because there's uncertainty in the future for them, and because the traditional upward social ladder has disappeared, the only way for them to really earn more asset, earn more money, is to really take a risk in investing in things like cryptocurrency or even real estate, etc. So instead of really just saving, they're turning to these a lot more high return, risky investment methods.
Exactly. As long as they can expand their assets, I think they would try anything out. And I think a really good point that we mentioned so far is the fact that we're actually really interested in learning more about this because we want to try out investing, whether it's now or in the near future. And we asked our viewers if there's any trending investment methods in their respective country. Here's what 3 of them had to say. Take a look at the screen to find out. Let's start with Tasmia. Tasmia said, in Bangladesh, the first investment is real estate, as it's a very traditional trend. The second is food and catering. Since we are an overpopulated country, we need to feed our people. Benny said, in the Philippines, the investment trends that we have usually are tourism, beauty, and personal care, agriculture, and food and beverages. And the reason is because these sectors can expand in our economy. Leon said Singapore's investment trends are quite diverse. For example, due to rising interest rates and uncertainties in the equity market, many investors are seeking stability and regular income through bonds and other fixed income instruments. I do think that our viewers pointed out a really important point. As much as it's important to personally invest, it's also important to really read all these socio-economic trends out there. And in order for us to do that, we're now going to include an expert who can better guide us on how to invest wisely and really read into the current market. We're now going to include an assistant professor from KDI School of Public Policy Management who can analyze our generation's investment trends. It's Professor Lee Sehyun. Welcome, Professor Lee.
Hi, good morning.
Hello. Professor Lee, I think the current market really affects our generation's investment patterns. So could you first define how the market is like at the moment and then characterize our generation's investment trends as of this moment?
Okay, so I think Gen Zs and Millennials are becoming more active in investing, as you already mentioned, and they're familiar with online banking and investment, and they spend a lot more time on finance and trading apps. And they adopt, and then leverage all of these innovations in fintech. And they do seamless cross-border international stock trading and sometimes use fractional trading to buy small shares of expensive stocks like Apple and Tesla. Through the financial services, they also get personalized investment advice on how to save and investment. And they're not afraid of investing in crypto assets like Bitcoin and other, small coins. So all of these factors are driving the younger generation's investment trend, which is a very short term and searching for higher yields.
Well, that's quite interesting. After what happened with the Luna coin, I thought that many of the Koreans would be very, disheartened by investing into cryptocurrency, but it still seems to continue, which is a good thing. But why do you think our generation is prioritizing investment and expanding our assets?
Younger generations have lived through huge market swings recently, like the real estate and tech bubbles and bust and COVID economic turmoil. And we have seen a lot of, fluctuations in the economic variables, let's say. Through this experience and the demographic changes we're watching now, they've recognized that they will not enjoy the returns, high returns, their parents actually made before. So they're afraid of losing their opportunity in a way. So, and also the cost of living crisis and the growing inequality between super rich and others, and made younger generations pay more attention to the investments. Also, I think compared to previous generations, there are much more younger people who have been gaining the financial freedom through, their incomes generated from social media and content creation, like YouTube creation. And they made much more purchasing power in the financial market these days. And they influence a lot to, other younger generations, other peers. So that all of these makes younger people try to pay more attention to the investment in general, I think.
I see. Well, last but not least, Professor, do you have any tips or things that we should keep in mind when investing?
Yeah, actually, the classic advice for younger generations still matters. Begin early to enjoy the compound interest. And also, you have to diversify your risk and avoid impulse spending and pay attention to where you allocate your money by budgeting. And also for the current economic situation with sluggish growth and high inflation, it may be helpful to add additional money to personal emergency funds to avoid excess borrowing at a very expensive interest rate if you need money urgently for possibly, higher housing and other cost of living in the near future. That is, in general, my advice at this moment.
Professor Lee, if I may ask one last question. It's so hard to read the market, though, because I'm no expert, and I think a lot of millennials and Gen Z can relate to this. But if you could go back to when we first started investing, what would be your first tip as to how to better read the market? Which news outlets should we be referring to? Are there any concrete advice that we could take into mind?
So actually, I think the financial literacy in general for the younger generation is weaker than the previous generations, because we have a lot of information flowing from all of the resources like Instagram, and many other, YouTube and many other social media. So it's really hard to find out which advice is reliable, which is not. So I think you should first learn some of the basics in business or economics so that you can read the market, macro market first, and then you will have some idea of how the macroeconomic goes in general. And then you can also learn some of the basics in accountings or business administrations so that you can understand how the firm works. So that you can select some of the good stocks for your own investment. So I think in general, we can leverage some of the basic learnings of economics and businesses.
So learn the basics of economics and then start out from something big and then narrow it down. That seems to be concrete advice. Thank you so much, Professor Lee. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, and to keep Professor Lee's words of advice in mind, how are you guys planning to better and safely invest this year? And I know, Walter, you said that you didn't start investment yet, but based on today's episode, will you?
Well, that's interesting. I actually forgot that I do invest.
Oh, really?
So I actually have a savings account that I do move a lot of my savings from bank to bank depending on their interest rates, and if they have a high interest rate, I definitely try to move it into that area. So there is an investment there as well. But Professor Lee brought up some really interesting things that I also could relate to. A lot of our generation as well these days are they're scared of losing money, so they're spending it straight away in a way.
Right.
It's sort of an oxymoron sort of situation. They want to, buy the brand new shiny thing and don't worry about, investing for the future. That's something that I think I've done very much in the past, but now, I've got a family to look after.
Yeah.
But yes, interesting enough, a lot of people also go to YouTube and learn from the social media, which I don't know if is a good idea. I think Professor Lee is right in saying that, we should look at accounting, learn business first. And that's something I might invest in as well. But for me, personally, I'm going to invest in my own business one day. So that means it's a little bit of a different situation to what we were talking about today. But a lot of my money, hopefully not all, will go into my business to one day help me get further in life.
That's a really great plan. And as you mentioned, I think our generation, though we are very interested in investments, sometimes we don't have the best financial literacy. We just try to get information really quickly, whether it be on social media or asking our friends without doing enough digging. We then invest, and sometimes we have to make the sacrifice because we lose a lot of money. So I think it's really key that we take this as like an academic assignment. We try to read into macroeconomics first and then delve one by one. But Chi, any personal tips you might have, given that you've told us that you've been investing in stocks and there's so many different methods out there?
That's right.
Any words of advice for our viewers?
Well, I think the effective way to really increase your savings, other than earning more, would be to actually study finance. And the best way to increase your financial literacy is to read economics news, news on the economy. If you keep reading these articles, I'm sure you'll get those eyes to look into the different markets and the different businesses. And also use less. And I think one other way is to really identify and analyze your spending habits and see if there's any room for improvement in them so that you can save more and really reduce unnecessary spending.
Exactly. And I think investment, the reason why it really resonates with our generation is because it brings results for myself. It's for yourself, so it's a good investment, a personal investment that you should make not only for the current situation, but also for the near future. Now, in the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Walter Lee
Lovely to be here.
and Chiji.
Thank you.
All right, thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
News
Generation.